Take the blank check and get out." He threw her away. 5 years later, the Millionaire CEO saw her with daughter and regretted everything. "Hi, my beautiful and loyal family. Welcome back to the place where your spirit is seen and your worth is honored, Mr. Peter's family. May the Almighty pour strength into every woman who has ever carried pain silently, who has ever wiped her own tears and kept walking when the world tried to break her. May every wound turn into wisdom, every betrayal turn into breakthrough, and every lonely night rise as a testimony of how fiercely God protected your heart. You are the warrior wrapped in gentleness, the nurturer shaped by grace, the quiet hero who stands even when her soul is tired. May your name be lifted with favor, may peace find you like a river, and may blessings chase your steps faster than every sorrow that once followed you. My precious family, your presence here is a force. Your love is the heartbeat of this home. A like is a wave of prayer. A comment is a bond of unity. If your heart chooses strength like this video, if your spirit walks with faith, comment, "I'm with Mr. Peter." The check had no amount written on it, just his signature and the unspoken message, "Name your price to disappear." Delicia Moore had stared at that blank check across the restaurant table, her hands trembling beneath the white tablecloth. The paper sat there like an insult wrapped in expensive banking stationery, Alfonso Peterman's scrawled signature mocking her with its careless confidence. The restaurant's classical music played on, oblivious to the fact that her entire world was crumbling between the appetizer and main course. "Handle this," Alfonso had said, his voice as cold as the marble floors in his penthouse office. "I can't be tied down right now, you understand?" She hadn't understood. They'd been together for months, real months, where she'd believed his late-night confessions about wanting something more than the emptiness of his real estate empire. Where she'd thought the way he held her meant something beyond convenience. Where she'd foolishly, naively believed that love could bridge the gap between her modest event coordinator salary and his million-dollar deals. "I'm not asking you to be tied down," Delicia had whispered, aware of the other diners pretending not to watch. "I'm telling you, you're going to be a father." Alfonso had adjusted his cufflinks. She remembered that detail with crystal clarity, how he'd fiddled with the gold while her world crumbled. The tiny sound of metal against fabric would haunt her for years. "No," he'd said simply, "I'm not." He'd stood then, leaving the check and walking out of the restaurant, out of her life, as easily as signing his name. She'd called 17 times that night. He'd blocked her number by morning. By the end of the week, he'd changed his email address. By the end of the month, he might as well have been a ghost. Delicia had torn the check in half that night, each piece a testament to her fury and her heartbreak. She'd kept both pieces in a box under her bed, a reminder that she'd survived his cruelty and would survive what came next. On her darkest days, she'd take them out and remember. She'd chosen dignity over desperation. She'd chosen herself. The pregnancy had been brutal without him. Morning sickness during client meetings where she'd had to excuse herself to vomit in bathroom stalls. Crying in her car after doctor's appointments where every form asked for the father's medical history. Delivering their daughter while holding a nurse's hand because nobody else was coming. The epidural not quite working. The pain, physical and emotional, intertwining until she couldn't separate them. But she'd done it. She'd built a life, a good life, on the foundation of her own strength. Now, standing in this upscale farmer's market on a sunny morning, Delicia felt that old foundation shake. Because there he was, Alfonso Peterman. Older, somehow both harder and softer around the edges, wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He stood frozen near the organic honey stand, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. His expensive coffee cup trembled in his hand, liquid threatening to spill. No. Not at her. At the little girl holding her hand. Hannah twirled in her yellow sundress, curly hair wild and beautiful, her mixed-race features a perfect blend of Delicia's rich brown skin and Alfonso's European heritage. She clutched a bunch of sunflowers nearly as tall as she was, chattering about butterflies and the purple grapes they'd just sampled. Her joy was pure, untainted by the knowledge of who she'd come from or what had been taken from her before she was born. "Mummy, why does that man look scared?" Hannah asked, her voice carrying in that fearless way children have. Alfonso's face had gone pale. His expensive coffee cup trembled in his hand. Delizia watched recognition dawn in his eyes. The same eyes Hannah had inherited, that distinctive blue-green that had once made her heart race. Delizia felt rage bloom hot and immediate in her chest. After all this time, after building a life, a career, a whole human being without him, he had the audacity to look shaken, to look at their daughter like he had any right to feel anything. "Nobody important, baby," Delizia said, loud enough for Alfonso to hear. "Just somebody who made bad choices." She took Hannah's hand and turned toward the parking lot, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She could feel his eyes on her back, could sense him moving, following. The familiar scent of his cologne reached her. He still wore the same one, and the memory of it made her stomach turn. "Delizia!" His voice cracked on her name. She spun so fast Hannah stumbled. "You have exactly 5 seconds to walk away before I call the police." Alfonso stood there in the middle of the parking lot, shoppers streaming around them like water around rocks, looking more lost than she'd ever seen him. Gone was the confident businessman who'd handed her a blank check. This man looked hollowed out, haunted by something Delizia refused to care about. "Please," he whispered. I need to... You need nothing from me." Delizia's hand shook as she fumbled for her car keys. "You made your choice with a blank check and a blocked number. You chose nothing, now watch me choose everything." She buckled Hannah into her car seat, her daughter's innocent questions. "Mommy, why are you crying? Who was that man? Why did he look sad?" Cutting deeper than any blade. Alfonso still stood there as she pulled out of the parking space, his figure growing smaller in her rearview mirror. He didn't move. Just watched them drive away like a man watching his last chance disappear. But not small enough. Never small enough to erase what he'd done, what he'd taken from her, what he'd missed. As Delizia drove home, Hannah chattering about the sunflowers in the back seat, she made herself a promise. Alfonso Peterman would not disrupt their peace. He'd had his chance. He'd thrown it away with the same casual cruelty rich men used when discarding anything that became inconvenient. If he wanted back in their lives, he'd have to do more than stare across a parking lot. He'd have to crawl through broken glass. He'd have to beg. He'd have to earn something she wasn't sure she could ever give again. Trust. Chapter 2. The Inheritance of Absence. He'd built an empire on foundations and structures, never realizing the only thing he'd ever constructed was the architecture of his own emptiness. Alfonso Peterman sat in his downtown penthouse as dawn broke over the city, his untouched scotch warming in his hand. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a view that real estate magazines called priceless. The leather furniture, the modern art, the imported marble, all of it worth millions, all of it meaningless. The sunrise painted the sky in colors that should have been beautiful, but Alfonso felt nothing except the hollow ache that had taken up permanent residence in his chest. He couldn't stop seeing her, them, the way Delizia had looked at him with such cold fury, and the little girl, his daughter, his actual daughter, asking why he looked scared. Because he was terrified of what he'd done, of what he'd lost, of the life that had continued without him as though he'd never mattered at all, which he supposed he hadn't. He'd made himself irrelevant the moment he'd chosen convenience over courage. Alfonso had spent the days since that farmer's market encounter trying to function. Board meetings blurred together into meaningless discussions of profit margins and development opportunities. His assistant kept having to repeat questions, her patience thinning with each interaction. He'd signed contracts without reading them, approved budgets without caring about the numbers. His business partner had asked twice if he was ill. Dr. Okonkwo, his therapist from years ago, had sounded unsurprised when Alfonso called at 2 a.m. "You've been running from something," she'd said, in her precise Nigerian accent, each word carefully chosen. "The question is whether you're finally ready to stop." He wasn't sure he was ready. But he couldn't keep running either. The exhaustion of maintaining distance from his own humanity had finally caught up with him. Alfonso spent hours online, piecing together Delicia's life from the fragments available. She'd risen to become the lead coordinator at Morrison and Hart, one of the city's most prestigious event planning firms. Her portfolio included charity galas, corporate launches, high-profile weddings. Articles praised her attention to detail, her ability to handle crisis with grace, her innovative approach to event design. She'd built her own empire while raising their daughter alone. While he'd been building towers of steel and glass, she'd been building something that actually mattered. He found himself outside her office building on a Tuesday morning, his courage wavering with each step toward the gleaming entrance. The lobby smelled like money and ambition, familiar territory for Alfonso, but he'd never felt more like an intruder. His reflection in the polished marble caught his eye, a stranger wearing expensive clothes like armor. "Can I help you?" The receptionist's professional smile didn't reach her eyes. "I need to see Delicia Moore." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but Ms. Moore doesn't take walk-ins. If you'd like to schedule, tell her Alfonso Peterman is here." His voice came out rougher than intended. "She'll know why." The receptionist's expression shifted, recognition perhaps, or just acknowledgement of his name's weight in this city's business circles. Everyone knew the Peterman name. It opened doors, secured tables at restaurants, guaranteed attention. For once, Alfonso wished he was nobody. She picked up the phone, murmured quietly, then looked up with something almost like pity. Someone will be down. That someone wasn't Delicia. A woman in her 40s, sharp-eyed and sharp-addressed, emerged from the elevator like a guardian at the gates. Her name tag read, Tanya Williams, Executive Assistant. Her expression read, Threat Assessment in Progress. "Mr. Peterman," Tanya said, not offering her hand, "Ms. Moore doesn't want to see you. I need 5 minutes. You had 5 years. You chose not to use them." The words were delivered without heat, which somehow made them cut deeper. The words hit like a physical blow. Alfonso steadied himself against the receptionist's desk. "Please, I just need to talk to her." "Why? What could you possibly say that matters now?" Tanya's voice held the protective fury of someone who'd witnessed Delicia's struggle. "You think you can walk back in after abandoning her? After she built a whole life without you? After she cried herself sick for months wondering what she did wrong? I know I don't deserve—" "You're right, you don't." Tanya crossed her arms. "But against my recommendation, she's agreed to see you. 5 minutes, no more." The elevator ride felt eternal. Tanya led him through halls decorated with photos of successful events, Delicia's work presumably. Evidence of her talent, her dedication, her success without him. Each photo was a testament to the life she'd built from the ruins he'd left her in. Delicia's office door was open. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the city skyline, wearing a navy suit that spoke of power and confidence. When she turned, Alfonso saw the exhaustion beneath her professional mask, the toll of single parenthood, of building a career while raising a child alone, was written in the fine lines around her eyes. 5 minutes, she said. No greeting, no warmth. Tanya positioned herself by the door, clearly ready to remove him if necessary. Alfonso's prepared speech evaporated. The office walls were covered with photos, Hannah at every age, birthday parties with homemade cakes decorated with more love than skill, first day of preschool in a yellow backpack nearly as big as she was, Halloween costumes that spoke of Delicia's creativity and love, a sunflower one year, a butterfly the next, an entire childhood documented in frames. He was in none of them. "I was wrong," Alfonso said, the words inadequate before they left his mouth. "I was a coward. I should have—" "Should have what?" Delicia's voice was deadly calm. "Should have answered my calls. Should have been there for the ultrasounds, for the birth, for the first time she smiled, for her first steps. For any of it? Yes, all of it. Well, you weren't." She moved behind her desk, putting furniture between them, a strategic positioning Alfonso recognized from his own business negotiations. "So, why are you here? Guilt finally catch up with you? Midlife crisis making you sentimental? Run out of things to buy and decided you wanted a ready-made family?" "I saw her," he whispered, "at the farmer's market. I saw Hannah and I—" "Don't!" Delicia's hand slammed on her desk, making a picture frame jump. "Don't you dare say her name like you know her, like you have any right to claim her. You don't know anything about her. You don't know her favorite color, or what makes her laugh, or what she's afraid of. She's my daughter. No, she's my daughter, mine. I was there for every doctor's appointment you missed, every sleepless night when she had colic, every milestone, every moment of fear and joy and exhaustion. You were there for nothing, less than nothing. You were an absence that shaped her life." The truth of it crushed him. Alfonso felt tears he hadn't shed in years burning behind his eyes. "I know, God, Delicia, I know, and I can't fix it, I can't go back. But I'm here now, and I'm asking, begging for a chance to— To what? Play daddy? Ease your conscience? Check off some box on your life goals list?" Delicia came around the desk, her fury finally breaking through. "Do you know what it's like to give birth holding a stranger's hand because the man who got you pregnant couldn't be bothered to show up? Do you know what it's like to field questions from a child about why she doesn't have a father like other kids? To see her watching families at the park and asking what's wrong with her, that her daddy didn't want her?" Alfonso couldn't speak through the lump in his throat. "I cried for months," Delicia continued, her voice cracking. "Cried until I had nothing left. Then I picked myself up and built a life for us. A good life. Without you. We don't need your guilt or your regret or your sudden realization that you have a child. What about what Hannah needs?" The words burst out desperately. "Doesn't she deserve a father? She deserves a father who won't abandon her the second things get difficult. A father who chooses her every single day. Are you that man, Alfonso? Or are you the man who hands out blank checks when life gets inconvenient?" Security appeared in the doorway. Tanya must have called them when voices rose. "Your 5 minutes are up," Delicia said. "Please leave." Alfonso let himself be escorted toward the elevator, each step away from her office feeling like another failure. But as the doors were closing, he heard it. Delicia's voice on the phone, the professional mask slipping like ice cracking under pressure. "No, Mama, he showed up at my office. I don't know what he wants. It doesn't matter." A pause. Then, so quietly Alfonso almost missed it, seeing him again. It brought everything back. The hurt, the fear. God, Mama, what if Hannah wants to know him? What do I do? How do I protect her from being disappointed by him the way I was? The elevator doors closed on her vulnerability, and Alfonso realized something crucial. Delicia's armor had cracks. She wasn't as impenetrable as she wanted him to believe. The wound he'd inflicted hadn't healed, she'd just gotten better at hiding it, which meant there might be hope, but only if he was willing to do more than apologize. Only if he was willing to prove, truly prove, that he'd changed. Chapter 3. The Uninvited Guest. Desperation makes men do foolish things, but it was realizing what he'd thrown away that made Alfonso reckless. The charity gala at the Sterling Hotel wasn't the kind of event Alfonso typically attended. Too much sincerity, not enough networking. Too many people who actually cared about the causes they were supporting, rather than the business connections they might make. But when he'd discovered Delicia was coordinating it, a fundraiser for single mothers' housing initiative, the irony wasn't lost on him. He'd secured a last-minute ticket through a board member contact. He told himself he just wanted to see her work, to understand the life she'd built. But the truth sat heavier in his chest. He was looking for another chance to speak to her, to make her understand he was serious about being in Hannah's life, even if he wasn't sure yet what that meant or how to make it happen. The hotel's grand ballroom had been transformed into an elegant space of soft lighting and carefully curated details. Every element spoke of Delicia's touch, the centerpieces of sunflowers and wildflowers that managed to look both elegant and approachable, the way the auction items were displayed like art rather than merchandise, the seamless flow from cocktail hour to dinner service that suggested hours of planning and preparation. And there she was, orchestrating it all. Delicia moved through the crowd in a floor-length navy gown that made her look like royalty, directing staff with subtle gestures, greeting donors with genuine warmth, solving problems before most people noticed they existed. She was magnificent. She belonged here among the successful and influential, had earned her place through sheer determination and talent. Alfonso watched from the bar, nursing a drink he couldn't taste, as Delicia worked the room. She belonged here among the successful and influential, had earned her place through sheer determination and talent. Without him, despite him, in spite of every obstacle he'd placed in her path. Their eyes met across the ballroom. Delicia's expression shifted from surprise to recognition to pure fury in the space of a heartbeat. She excused herself from a conversation with a silver-haired donor and cut through the crowd toward him with dangerous purpose, her gown flowing behind her like a wave. "Are you stalking me?" Delicia hissed, grabbing his elbow and steering him toward a side hallway, away from witnesses, away from her professional sphere where his presence could damage her reputation. "I bought a ticket," Alfonso said, though the justification sounded weak even to his own ears. "I wanted to support the cause. You wanted to ambush me at my workplace." She released his arm like it burned her. "After I explicitly told you to leave me alone. You told me to leave your office. You didn't say, 'I shouldn't have to.'" Delicia's voice rose, then dropped as she remembered where they were. "I shouldn't have to spell out that showing up at my events, at places you know I'll be, is crossing a line. I shouldn't have to explain basic boundaries to a grown man." Alfonso looked at the woman who'd once shared his bed, his secrets, his early morning conversations about dreams and fears. The woman who'd believed his promises about wanting something real, something more than the shallow connections his world offered. Now she looked at him like he was a stranger, worse, like he was a threat. "I know this looks bad," he started. "It doesn't look bad, it is bad." Delicia crossed her arms. "What do you want, Alfonso? Really? Because I don't believe this is about Hannah. I think this is about your ego. I think you can't handle that we're fine without you, that we're thriving without you. You think I'm here because of my ego?" The accusation stung because part of it might be true. "I'm here because I saw my daughter for the first time and realized what I threw away. Because I can't sleep, can't focus, can't stop thinking about the life you built without me and wondering if there's any room—" "There isn't," Delicia cut him off. "There's no room for you in our life. We're complete, whole. We don't have a U-shaped hole waiting to be filled. We built something beautiful without you, and I won't let you tear it down." Through the doorway, Alfonso could see the gala continuing without its coordinator. A staff member was searching, probably looking for Delicia to handle some crisis. She was needed elsewhere, and he was keeping her from her work. Just another way he disrupted her life without permission. "You need to get back," he said. "I know." But she didn't move. "I need you to understand something, Alfonso. When you handed me that check, when you looked at me like I was a problem to solve rather than a woman carrying your child, something broke. Not just my heart, my trust. My belief that you were the man you'd pretended to be. My faith that love meant anything more than convenience. I know I hurt you. You destroyed me." Her voice cracked. "You have no idea what it took to rebuild myself. The therapy, the support groups, the nights I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. And I did it. I'm stronger now than I ever was with you. So forgive me if I'm not willing to let you waltz back in and risk everything I've built. Forgive me if I don't trust that you won't shatter me again the moment things get difficult. I'm not asking to waltz back in. I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed." People don't change, Alfonso. They just get better at hiding who they really are. A small commotion at the ballroom entrance caught both their attention. Tanya appeared, leading a little girl in a fancy dress. Hannah, her curly hair pulled back with yellow ribbons, looking adorable and sleepy. The babysitter emergency that every working mother dreads. "I'm sorry," Tanya called out, spotting Delicia. "The babysitter got sick. Her backup fell through. I had to bring her." Delicia's entire demeanor shifted. her armor dropping as maternal instinct took over. "It's okay, baby, come here." Hannah ran to her mother, then stopped short when she saw Alfonso. Recognition dawned on her small face. "Mummy, that's the man from the market, the sad one." Alfonso felt his heart crack open. She remembered him. This child who didn't know him, who owed him nothing, remembered him, had thought about him enough to recognize him weeks later. "Yes, honey," Delicia said carefully, her eyes warning Alfonso not to overstep. "But we need to get back inside. Can you sit with Tanya for a little while?" "Why does he look sad again?" Hannah asked, her innocent question carrying devastating weight. Did somebody hurt his feelings? Did he lose something important? Delicia's eyes met Alfonso's over their daughter's head. For one unguarded moment he saw her uncertainty, her own hurt reflected back at him, the part of her that still carried scars from his abandonment. "Sometimes people are sad because of choices they made," Delicia said softly, speaking to Hannah but watching Alfonso. "Sometimes they're sad because they realize too late what really matters. Sometimes they're sad because they broke something they can't fix." Hannah studied Alfonso with the serious contemplation only children possess. "You should get a hug. Mommy says hugs fix everything." "Not everything, baby," Delicia whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "Not everything." She took Hannah's hand and turned back toward the ballroom. Alfonso stood in the empty hallway, his daughter's innocent kindness gutting him more thoroughly than Delicia's anger ever could. A hug couldn't fix this. Nothing simple could. Tanya lingered behind, her expression less hostile than before, but still wary. "She cried for 6 months straight," she said quietly, "after you left. I'd find her in the bathroom during lunch breaks, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. She was terrified, of being alone, of failing, of not being enough for that little girl. She had panic attacks. She lost weight because she couldn't eat. She thought she was dying. That's how bad the stress was. I didn't know. You didn't care to know." Tanya's voice was gentle but firm. "That's the difference. So if you're serious about this, about wanting to be in their lives, you need to understand what you're asking her to risk. Delicia rebuilt herself from nothing. She doesn't need you." "But Hannah..." She paused. "Hannah asks about her daddy, and every time Delicia has to explain why some people aren't strong enough for love. Don't prove her right." Tanya left him there and Alfonso sank onto a hallway bench, his head in his hands. Hannah's words echoed, "You should get a hug." Such simple wisdom from someone so young, such impossible healing from someone so innocent. But some wounds couldn't be healed with hugs. Some required time, consistency, and a kind of dedication Alfonso wasn't sure he possessed. The question was, could he become the man they deserved? Could he prove Delicia wrong about people not changing? Or would he prove her devastatingly, heartbreakingly right? Chapter 4. The 5 Conditions. She didn't owe him a roadmap to redemption, but she gave him one anyway. Not for his sake, but because Hannah deserved a father who'd walk through fire to earn the title. Alfonso started appearing everywhere. Not aggressively, he kept his distance, never approached Hannah directly, but consistently enough that Delicia couldn't pretend it was coincidence. Each appearance was carefully calculated to be visible but respectful, present but not pushy. At the preschool fundraiser, he stood at the back of the outdoor amphitheater, watching Hannah perform in her class's musical number. She sang about butterflies with wild hand gestures and off-key enthusiasm. He didn't try to speak to them, just watched until the show ended and quietly left. But Delicia knew he'd been there because Hannah mentioned the sad man in the back who was smiling. At the farmer's market the following weekend, Delicia spotted him 2 stalls over, pretending to examine organic tomatoes while clearly watching them. When Hannah wanted to see the bunnies at the petting zoo area, Alfonso was already there, keeping a respectful distance, but close enough that Delicia knew he was tracking their movements. The library's Saturday story time, the park near their apartment, the coffee shop Delicia frequented on Sunday mornings. Each time, Alfonso maintained distance but made his presence known, not threatening, but relentless. After 2 weeks of this, Delicia's patience finally snapped. She waited until Hannah was at her mother's house for the evening, then drove to Alfonso's penthouse building. The doorman tried to announce her, but she brushed past. She'd been here before, back when they were together, back when she'd believed his promises. The marble lobby, the elevator that moved too smoothly, the hallway that smelled like money, all of it familiar and alien at once. Alfonso answered his door in worn jeans and a t-shirt, looking nothing like the polished businessman who'd walked out of her life. His eyes were hollow, red-rimmed from lack of sleep, and she wondered briefly if he'd been sleeping at all. The penthouse behind him looked lived in, but not lived in, expensive, but empty. "Delicia, how did you find out where I shop? Where Hannah goes to school? Our schedule?" She pushed past him into the pristine penthouse. "Did you hire someone? A private investigator? Are you having me followed?" "I called Tanya," he admitted, closing the door. "Asked where you usually go, public places where I might see you both. I needed to—" "You needed to what? Stalk us?" Delicia spun on him, fury and exhaustion warring in her chest. "Do you understand how violating this is? How every time I turn around you're there? How Hannah now asks about you constantly? How you've inserted yourself into our lives without permission?" "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "You never mean anything, Alfonso. That's the problem." She was shouting now, past caring about composure. "You meant to be there when things were easy. You didn't mean to abandon me when I got pregnant. You don't mean to make me feel watched and hunted in my own neighborhood, but somehow your intentions never match your actions." "Tell me what to do." Alfonso's voice broke. "Please, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to prove I'm serious. I don't know the rules. Just tell me what you need and I'll do it." "I need you to disappear." The words exploded out of her. "I need you to go back to not existing in our lives. I need Hannah to stop asking about the sad man who keeps showing up. I need—" She stopped, because Hannah had asked. Multiple times. "Who is that man, Mommy? Why is he always alone? Can we say hi to him? Why does he look like he wants to be our friend but is too scared to ask?" And Delicia had run out of explanations that didn't sound like lies. "I can't give you what you want," Alfonso said quietly. "I can't disappear. I can't stop existing. I tried that for 5 years, and look where it got us. But I can do anything else, literally anything. Give me a list, give me rules, give me impossible tasks, whatever it takes to prove I'm serious." Delicia looked at this man who'd once been everything to her, who'd become nothing, who was now begging to become something again. The smart move was to say no, to protect herself and Hannah from the inevitable disappointment, to maintain the walls that had kept her safe. But then she thought of her daughter's questions, of the empty space in Hannah's life where a father should be, of the fact that despite everything, Alfonso kept showing up, kept trying, kept refusing to accept her rejection. "I'm going to give you one chance," Delicia said slowly. "One. You fail, you're done forever. I'll get a restraining order if I have to. I'll move if necessary, do you understand?" "Yes. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Hannah, because she deserves better than wondering why her father wasn't strong enough to choose her, because I refuse to lie to her anymore about who you are." She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app and began typing. When she finished, she turned the screen toward him. 5 conditions, non-negotiable. You meet every single one or this ends before it begins. Alfonso read the list, his face paling with each line. "Therapy," Delicia explained. "Weekly, with Dr. Okonkwo. Yes, I already called her. She remembers you. You need to figure out why you ran, not for me, for yourself. Because if you don't fix what's broken inside you, you'll run again the moment things get hard." "I'll do it." 50 hours volunteering at Grace Haven Women's Shelter. They help single mothers who've been abandoned by partners. You're going to see what you put me through. You're going to help women like me. You're going to sit with their stories and understand the weight of what you did. Maybe then you'll understand why I can't just forgive and forget." Alfonso nodded, jaw tight. "Complete the North Valley parenting course. It's 6 weeks, every Tuesday evening. You don't know the first thing about being a father. You're going to learn. Developmental stages, discipline strategies, emotional needs, all of it." "Okay." "Write Hannah 60 letters, one for every month you missed. I want you to sit with that absence. Feel every moment you weren't there. Put it in writing. Make it real instead of abstract. Count the days you chose not to show up. I'll start tonight. And finally, prove you can be consistent. 6 months, 24 weeks. You show up when you say you will. You complete what you start. You miss 1 week, without a legitimate emergency, and you're done." Delizia locked her phone and met his eyes. "She doesn't know you're her father. That's a privilege you'll have to earn. For now, you're Mr. Alfonso, a family friend, nothing more. You'll have supervised meetings in public places. You don't get private time with her until I trust you won't disappear, until I believe you won't break her heart the way you broke mine." "What constitutes a legitimate emergency?" Alfonso asked carefully. "Hospitalization, death, natural disaster. Not a business meeting, not a better offer, not inconvenience, not something came up. You chose work over us before. You don't get to do it again." "I understand." "Do you?" Delicia stepped closer, making him meet her eyes. "Because I have documentation, Alfonso. Years of texts you ignored, medical bills I paid alone, a birth certificate with a blank line where a father's name should be, hospital records showing I had no emergency contact. If you hurt Hannah, if you waltz into her life and then abandon her like you did me, I will bury you in court. I will make sure you never have the chance to hurt her again. I will use every resource I have to protect her from you." "I won't hurt her." "You already have, just by not being there." Delicia headed toward the door. "Your first therapy appointment is Tuesday at 9 in the morning. I'll expect weekly proof you attended, a form Dr. Okonkwo will sign. Grace Haven expects you Wednesday at 10. I already told them you were coming. Don't make me look like a fool. Don't make me regret giving you this chance." "When do I start seeing Hannah?" "When I say so." She paused at the door. "And Alfonso, Hannah asked me yesterday if you were her daddy. She said you have the same eyes as her, the same smile, the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking." I told her no. I lied to my daughter to protect her. Don't make me regret changing my mind. Don't make me regret believing you might actually follow through this time." The door closed behind her with quiet finality. Alfonso stood in his empty penthouse, looking at the list Delicia had sent to his phone. 5 conditions, 6 months, 60 letters. It seemed impossible. It seemed insurmountable. It seemed like exactly what he deserved. He opened his laptop and began the first letter. "Dear Hannah, month 1. Today your mum gave me a chance I don't deserve. I'm going to spend every day trying to become worthy of it, of you. This is what I should have written when I first learned you existed. This is what I should have said instead of handing your mother a blank check and walking away. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to be the father you deserve." Chapter 5. The Man in the Rain. Redemption isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small choices to show up when running would be easier. Dr. Okonkwo's office smelled like lavender and hard truths. Alfonso sat in the leather chair across from her, the same chair he'd occupied years ago when his father's death had sent him spiraling. He'd quit therapy once he felt functional again, declared himself healed, went back to building his empire. He'd told himself he was fine, that he'd dealt with his issues, that therapy was for people who couldn't handle life on their own. "You ran from fatherhood because you were terrified of becoming your father," Dr. Okonkwo said during their 3rd session, her words precise as surgical cuts. "A man who prioritized success over presence, who gave you everything except himself, who measured love in trust funds and disappointment in profit margins." "I'm not like him," Alfonso protested weakly, but even he could hear the lie in his voice. "No? You handed the mother of your child a blank check. Your father handed you trust funds and boarding school tuition. Both of you used money to avoid emotional responsibility. Both of you ran from intimacy. Both of you believed that success could substitute for love. The observation landed like a punch. Alfonso had spent his whole life determined not to be his father, distant, cold, absent, only to repeat the same patterns in a different way. He'd become exactly what he'd sworn to avoid. Grace Haven Women's Shelter sat in a neighborhood Alfonso had never noticed, despite driving past it 100 times. The building was tired but clean, the common areas filled with children's drawings and hope stretched thin over exhaustion. Everything about it spoke of people doing their best with not enough resources, of love persisting despite impossible circumstances. The director, a woman named Patricia Lee, gave him a tour without judgment. Most of our residents are here because someone they trusted abandoned them, left them with children to raise and bills to pay. Some were abused, some were simply discarded when they became inconvenient, when pregnancy or parenthood made them less fun, less easy, less convenient. Alfonso met Maya, who worked 3 jobs to afford childcare while finishing her nursing degree. Jennifer, whose partner left when their son was diagnosed with autism because he couldn't handle the stress. Keisha, whose baby's father vanished the day after she gave birth, leaving her with hospital bills and a newborn and no way to contact him. "Where's your baby's father now?" Alfonso asked Keisha during his 2nd week, helping sort donated clothing in the common room. "Don't know. Don't care." She folded a tiny onesie with practiced efficiency. Some men aren't built for the hard parts. They're great at creating babies, terrible at raising them, great at promises, terrible at follow-through. Alfonso saw himself in every story, heard his own excuses in their descriptions of absent fathers, felt nauseated by the mirror being held up to his choices. These women could have been Delicia. These children could have been Hannah. The parenting course met in a community center basement. Alfonso was the only man in a room full of expecting mothers and single mums trying to learn what they'd missed or never known. They discussed development milestones, sleep training, emotional regulation, gentle discipline. The instructor passed around dolls to practice diapering. Alfonso fumbled with the tiny snaps while the woman next to him completed it effortlessly. "Consistency is everything," the instructor said. "Children need to know you'll be there, that they can count on you. Without consistency, nothing else matters. Not love, not good intentions, not even being present sometimes. Children need predictability." Alfonso took notes like his life depended on it, because Hannah's life did. The letters were harder than anything else. Every night after his volunteer shift, before his parenting class homework, Alfonso wrote to his daughter. Each one forced him to confront a specific month of absence, a specific milestone he'd missed. "Dear Hannah, month 2. Today I learned about the terrible 2s at parenting class. I wonder if you went through that stage. I wonder if you threw tantrums or if you were an easy child. Did you scream in grocery stores? Did you refuse to nap? Did you test boundaries with the fearlessness only toddlers possess? I'll never know, because I wasn't there. I can't get those moments back. I can only promise to be there for all the moments ahead. Dear Hannah, month 3. A woman at the shelter told me today that her daughter's first word was mama. What was your first word? Did you walk early or late? Are you afraid of the dark? Do you like broccoli? Do you have nightmares? What makes you laugh? I don't know anything about you except that you have my eyes and your mother's courage. I'm going to spend the rest of my life learning everything else. Delicia began allowing supervised meetings at a local park, 20 minutes every Saturday morning. Alfonso would arrive 30 minutes early, sit on a designated bench, and wait. He brought a thermos of coffee he never drank, just held it for warmth and something to do with his hands. Hannah would run over, curious and energetic, while Delicia watched from a nearby bench. She never took her eyes off them. Alfonso felt the weight of her scrutiny, knew she was cataloguing every interaction, every word, every moment of contact. "Hi, Mr. Alfonso." Hannah greeted him the first Saturday, breathless from running. Mummy says we're friends now. I'd like that very much, Alfonso managed around the lump in his throat. They fed ducks, though Alfonso learned from the park ranger that bread was bad for them and switched to lettuce. Played on the swings, Alfonso learning to push with just enough force to thrill, but not scare. Drew pictures in the dirt with sticks. Hannah drew her family. Alfonso drew houses he promised to build for her someday. Hannah chatted about preschool, about her best friend Emma who had a dog, about the caterpillar she'd found that morning that Mommy said would turn into a butterfly. Alfonso memorized every word, wrote them down later in his phone so he wouldn't forget, included them in his letters. "Do you have any kids?" Hannah asked during their third meeting, the innocent question stopping his heart. Alfonso's breath caught. Delicia was watching intently from her bench, her body tensed, like she might intervene. "I have a daughter," he said carefully, "but I haven't been a very good daddy to her." "Why not?" "Because I was scared, and scared people sometimes make bad choices." Hannah considered this with the seriousness only small children possess. "My mommy says it's okay to be scared, but you gotta be brave anyway. Being brave means doing stuff even when you're scared." "Your mommy is very wise." "She's the best mommy in the whole world," Hannah said with absolute certainty. "But sometimes she gets sad. I think she wishes I had a daddy too. Sometimes I hear her crying at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Alfonso looked at Delicia, saw her wipe at her eyes quickly. The weight of what he'd done to both of them pressed down on his chest until breathing hurt. Hannah's dance recital was scheduled for a rainy evening in late spring. Alfonso arrived early, as he did for everything now. He'd learned that showing up meant arriving early, staying late, being present for every moment. The community center was packed with parents armed with cameras and phones. Alfonso stood outside the door, reading Delicia's text. "You can come, but not inside. You haven't earned that yet." It stung. But it was fair. He'd earned nothing but her distrust. He found a window that looked into the small theater. The rain started as a drizzle, then became a downpour. Water soaked through his expensive jacket within minutes. Alfonso stood there, rain streaming down his face, as he watched through the window. Hannah was a sunflower in the performance, literally dressed in a yellow costume with petals around her face. She knew all her moves, beaming with pride. Other parents filmed on their phones. Delicia sat in the front row, clearly crying with maternal joy. Alfonso watched for 2 hours, never moving from his spot in the rain. His feet went numb. His clothes were drenched. Water ran into his shoes, down his back. He didn't care. He'd stand there all night if it meant seeing her dance. When the performance ended, parents flooded out to congratulate their children. Hannah spotted Alfonso through the window, pressed against the glass like a drowned man, water streaming down his face. "Mommy!" she shrieked. "Mr. Alfonso is outside. He's all wet." She ran out, Delicia close behind. Alfonso was shivering uncontrollably, lips blue with cold, looking like he might collapse. "You watched through the window?" Hannah asked, incredulous. "In the rain, for the whole time?" "Wouldn't have missed it," Alfonso managed through chattering teeth. "You'll catch pneumonia," Delicia said, something shifting in her expression. Fear, maybe, or recognition that his dedication was real. "Get in the car." The drive to his building was silent except for Hannah's excited recap of the performance. Alfonso focused on not shaking apart, on keeping his teeth from chattering too loudly. At his building's entrance, Delicia finally spoke. "Why didn't you leave when it started raining?" "Because you said I could come. You didn't say I could come inside, but you said I could come. So I came, and I stayed. That's what you asked for. Consistency, showing up even when conditions aren't perfect. You could have gotten sick. I'd stand in rain for 100 performances if it meant seeing her dance." Alfonso met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "I'd stand in a blizzard. I'd stand in fire. Whatever it takes to be there for her, to prove to you that I'm not going anywhere this time." Delicia looked away, but not before he saw her armor crack just a little more. As he was getting out, Hannah called, Can Mr. Alfonso come to my birthday party? Please? It's not for a long time, but I want him there. Delicia hesitated, the weight of the decision visible on her face. We'll see, baby. To Alfonso, quieter. You're halfway through month 3. 3 more months. Don't get comfortable. But her voice was softer than before, as if standing in the rain for 2 hours had communicated something words couldn't. As Alfonso changed into dry clothes in his empty penthouse, he realized something. Consistency wasn't just about showing up. It was about showing up even when conditions were miserable, even when it was hard, even when nobody would know if you'd left. It was about choosing to stay in the rain because you'd promised to be there, even if there meant outside looking in. That's what Delicia had been testing, and for once, maybe he'd passed. Chapter 6. Blood and Bruises. Love isn't measured in words or promises. It's measured in what you're willing to bleed for. Month 4 brought an unexpected gift, unsupervised park time. Not long, just 30 minutes. But Delicia allowed Alfonso to take Hannah to the playground while she sat in her car nearby, working on her laptop and occasionally glancing up to watch them. "Look how high I can swing!" Hannah shouted, pumping her legs with fierce determination. Alfonso stood behind her, giving gentle pushes when she needed help, his heart so full it physically hurt. These small moments, pushing his daughter on a swing, hearing her laugh, watching her fearless joy, were treasures he'd thrown away once, never again. He'd remember every second of this. "Higher, Mr. Alfonso. I want to touch the sky." "The sky's pretty high up, Hannah Bear." She giggled at the nickname he'd tentatively started using. "That's silly. I'm not a bear. Bears are big and scary." "No, you're braver than any bear I know." The afternoon was perfect until 3 teenage boys appeared at the park's entrance. Alfonso noticed them immediately, something about their aggressive energy, the way they took up space like they owned it, the barely controlled chaos in their movements. They were loud, shoving each other, clearly under the influence of something. Their eyes were unfocused, their laughter too sharp. Alfonso positioned himself closer to Hannah, instinct prickling at the back of his neck. "Yo, check out that fine woman over there," one of the boys said loudly, gesturing toward a mother with a stroller. Then his eyes landed on Delicia's car, where she was visible through the windshield. "Nah, that one. Look at her. Excuse me," Alfonso called out, keeping his voice level despite the anger rising in his chest. "There are children here. Watch your language." The tallest boy, maybe 16, all bravado and bad decisions, turned toward Alfonso. "What are you, the playground police? I'm asking you to show some respect." "Or what?" The boy stepped closer. His friends followed, emboldened by numbers and whatever they'd taken. Hannah had stopped swinging, sensing the tension. "Mr. Alfonso? Who are those boys? Why are they being mean?" "Just some people who are about to leave," Alfonso said firmly, moving between Hannah and the approaching teens. "You guys need to go somewhere else." "We don't need to do nothing," the second boy said. He was shorter, meaner looking, with a scar across his eyebrow. "This is a public park. We got as much right to be here as you." The third boy noticed Hannah. "Cute kid. She yours?" Something in the way he said it, the assumption that Alfonso couldn't possibly be the father of this beautiful mixed-race child, the implication in his tone, made Alfonso's jaw clench. "Yes," he said, "she is." "Right," the tall one laughed. "You babysitting or something? Where's her real dad? Probably took one look at this setup and bounced, huh?" I said leave. Instead, the second boy walked toward the swings. Hannah backed away, frightened, pressing against Alfonso's legs. "Mommy?" "It's okay, sweetheart," Alfonso said, though panic was rising in his chest. "Just stay behind me." The boy grabbed the swing Hannah had been on and pushed it hard, making it fly wild and high. The chains rattled violently. Hannah screamed and stumbled backward, falling onto the wood chips. Alfonso didn't think. He grabbed the tall boy by his jacket, shoving him back. "Don't touch her. Don't go near her." The punch came fast. Alfonso saw stars, tasted blood. He wasn't a fighter, hadn't been in a physical altercation since high school, and even then, It had been a clumsy scuffle over something he couldn't remember. These boys were young, angry, and knew how to hurt people. But they'd have to go through him to get to Hannah. The second punch caught his ribs. Pain exploded through his chest. The third split his lip. Alfonso went down on one knee, protecting his head, but he didn't move away from Hannah, didn't let them get past him. Each hit he took was one Hannah didn't. "Stop it!" Hannah was sobbing, her small voice barely audible over the boys' laughter. "Stop hurting him, please stop!" Delicia came running from the car, phone already to her ear. "I'm calling the police. Get away from them. I have your faces on video. Get away!" The boys scattered like roaches when lights come on, their bravado evaporating at the threat of real consequences. Alfonso stayed down, pain radiating through his chest, his face throbbing. Hannah threw herself at him, her small body shaking. "You're bleeding! Mr. Alfonso, you're bleeding! Mommy, he's bleeding!" "I'm okay, sweetheart, I'm okay." He tried to hug her but winced at the movement. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "No, but they hurt you! They hurt you bad." Delicia reached them, dropping to her knees beside Alfonso, her hands hovering over his injuries like she wanted to help, but didn't know where to touch without causing more pain. Her phone was still recording, capturing evidence. "I called 911, she said, voice shaking. "Ambulance is coming. Police too. Alfonso, can you breathe okay? Talk to me. Tell me what hurts." "Ribs," he gasped. "Think something's broken. Maybe more than one. Don't move. Just stay still." Hannah clung to his neck, crying into his shoulder, getting blood on her sunflower costume. "Don't die, Mr. Alfonso. Please don't die. I don't want you to die." "Not dying, Hannah Bear. Just got a little banged up protecting you." He managed to touch her hair with his less injured hand. "You're safe. That's what matters." In the emergency room, after x-rays confirmed 2 broken ribs, a hairline fracture in his cheekbone, and the doctors had stitched his split lip, Alfonso lay in the hospital bed feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. Everything hurt, even breathing hurt. Hannah refused to leave his side, curled up carefully beside him, her small hand holding his. The police had taken statements. The park security cameras had caught everything. The boys would be found. They'd been stupid enough to attack someone in a well-monitored public space. Delicia sat in the chair beside the bed, looking smaller than Alfonso had ever seen her. Her hands shook in her lap. "You could have been killed," she whispered. "What if they'd had a knife, a gun? What if they were just kids? Kids can kill people." Her voice cracked. "What if they'd hit you wrong? What if you'd fallen wrong? What if Hannah had been hurt? What if I couldn't let them hurt her? You should have called for me. Let me handle it. You're not a fighter, Alfonso. You're a businessman who sits in boardrooms, not someone who—" Alfonso tried to sit up, gasped at the pain, let the bed hold him. "There wasn't time, and she's my job to protect now. That's what fathers do. They stand between their children and danger. They take the hits so their kids don't have to. She's not your job." "You don't owe—" "I owe her everything." The words came out fierce despite the pain. "I owe her every protection I didn't give before. I owe her 5 years of safety I wasn't there to provide. If I could take every hit meant for her for the rest of my life, I would. Every single one. Without hesitation." Delicia stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "Why? Why now? Why are you doing this? 5 years ago, you couldn't be bothered to answer my calls, and now you're taking beatings from teenage boys?" "Because she's mine, and I love her, and I should have been doing this from the beginning. I should have been there to protect you both from day one." Hannah stirred against his side. "Daddy," she mumbled, half asleep from exhaustion and stress. The word hung in the air like a prayer, like a benediction, like everything Alfonso had been fighting for. Alfonso's heart stopped. Delicia's eyes went wide. Hannah blinked awake, seeming to realize what she'd said. "I mean, Mr. Alfonso, sorry, I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," Delicia said softly, her voice breaking. "Don't ever apologize for that, baby." After Hannah fell fully asleep, pain medication making Alfonso drowsy, he felt Delicia's hand slip into his. She didn't say anything, didn't need to. For the first time, she was choosing to hold on to him instead of pushing him away. And Alfonso understood. Love wasn't proved in grand gestures or perfect moments. It was proved in blood and bruises and broken ribs, in standing between your child and danger without hesitation, in being willing to hurt so they wouldn't have to, in choosing their safety over your own without even thinking about it. Chapter 7. The Unraveling. He'd spent his life building an empire, never realizing the only kingdom that mattered was the one he'd abandoned. The call came during Alfonso's physical therapy session. His ribs were healing but still tender, making the exercises brutal. The therapist pushed him through range of motion work that felt like being stabbed repeatedly. When his phone rang with his business partner's name, Alfonso almost didn't answer, almost let it go to voicemail, but old habits died hard. "We have a problem," Brandon Walsh said without preamble. "The Callaway merger is happening this weekend. Miami. They won't reschedule. You need to be there or the whole deal falls apart." Alfonso's stomach sank. This weekend is Hannah's family's day at her preschool. Hannah who? Brandon's confusion was genuine. As far as Alfonso's business associates knew, he'd been distracted and unfocused lately, making poor decisions, missing opportunities, but they didn't know why. "My daughter." The silence on the other end lasted several beats. "Your what? Since when do you have a daughter?" "Alfonso, what the hell is going on with you?" "I have a daughter. She's in preschool, and I'm not missing her event." "Alfonso, this is a $40 million deal. Do you understand what that means for the company? For our investors? You've been checked out for months, and now you're telling me you're going to blow the biggest merger we've ever attempted for a kindergarten play." "Preschool. And yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you." "Have you lost your mind?" Brandon's voice rose. "Who is this kid? Where did she come from? And why am I just hearing about her now when she's apparently more important than our company? She came from me walking away when I should have stayed. From me being a coward. And I'm not doing that again. You're going to tank this company over one event? One afternoon? You can't send flowers? Take her to Disney World next week? Something? Then tank it." Alfonso felt strangely calm, the physical therapy pain nothing compared to the clarity in his mind. "Send someone else to Miami. Handle it yourself. I don't care. I'm not missing this. The board will have your head. Let them try. I'll resign before I miss this." Alfonso hung up. His phone immediately started ringing again. Brandon, board members, investors who'd somehow already heard. The business world moved fast when money was on the line. He turned it off. Dr. Okonkwo smiled when he told her about it during their session. The old Alfonso would have chosen the money, every single time, without hesitation. The old Alfonso was an idiot who didn't know what mattered. The old Alfonso was scared. The new Alfonso is learning that some things matter more than profit margins, that success means different things, that real wealth isn't measured in dollars. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather and Alfonso's stomach in knots. He'd traded a $40 million deal for a preschool event. His business partner was furious. The board had already called an emergency meeting for Monday to discuss his future with the company. He'd probably be forced out, lose his position, watch the empire he'd built crumble. He didn't regret it for a second. The preschool's Family's Day was held in their small gymnasium, decorated with children's artwork and hand-drawn banners proclaiming, "We love our families." Parents crowded onto small chairs designed for much smaller bodies, phones ready to capture every moment. Delicia spotted him immediately. For once, she didn't look angry. She looked shocked, like she'd expected him not to show. "You came," she said as he approached. "I thought you had that Miami thing. Brandon called me yesterday. I don't know how he got my number, asking if I knew how to reach you. He sounded panicked. This was more important. You lost a major deal for a preschool art show? I didn't lose anything that matters." Alfonso looked around at the other families, mothers, fathers, grandparents, all there to celebrate their children. This is what matters. Being here, showing up, choosing her. They found seats together. Hannah, spotting Alfonso, waved frantically from where the children were lined up, her entire face lighting up with joy. He waved back, feeling his heart might burst from his chest. The event began with songs the children had practiced. Hannah sang off-key and with complete enthusiasm, her joy infectious, unburdened by self-consciousness or fear of judgment. Then came the art show. Projects each child had created about their family. When they got to Hannah's display, Alfonso stopped breathing. The poster board was covered in crayons and markers and glitter that would probably never fully come off anyone's clothes. "My family" was written across the top in careful letters that showed Hannah's developing fine motor skills. Below were stick figures. Delizia in purple, her favorite color. Hannah in yellow, a woman labeled Grandma Gloria, and a tall figure in blue labeled Mr. Alfonso. He was there, included in her family. This child who barely knew him, who he'd known for only months, who owed him nothing, had decided he belonged. Alfonso made it to the hallway before breaking down completely. Deep, wrenching sobs that hurt his healing ribs, that came from somewhere primal and raw. Delizia found him there, leaning against the wall, shoulders shaking. "Alfonso, she put me in her family," he choked out. "I've known her for 4 months, and she already... I don't deserve that. I don't deserve her thinking I belong." Delizia was crying too. "I know. I don't deserve that. I don't deserve her. I don't deserve any of this." "Maybe not, but she chose you anyway. That's what children do. They choose to love even when the adults in their lives don't deserve it." Parents were leaving with their children, heading to lunch or the park or wherever families went after these events. Normal, everyday families who took for granted what Alfonso had thrown away, who didn't appreciate the miracle of being chosen. "Walk with me," Delizia said quietly. They walked to the small park across from the preschool. Hannah was with Delizia's mother, giving them space, giving them time to talk without small ears listening. The afternoon sun filtered through trees that were just beginning to show autumn colors, painting everything golden. "You walked away from $40 million, Delizia said, sitting on a bench worn smooth by years of use. "It's just money." "That's easy for a rich man to say." Alfonso sat beside her, maintaining respectful distance. "No, it's easy for a man who finally understands what wealth actually means. I have millions in the bank, Delizia, but I've been bankrupt where it counts. I've been poor in everything that makes life worth living. What good is 40 million if I miss watching my daughter discover art, if I miss seeing her include me in her family? So this is your redemption arc. Sacrifice business for family and prove you've changed? This is me showing up, that's all. No arc, no grand gesture. Just being there, just choosing her, just proving through actions instead of words that she matters more than money." Delizia was quiet for a long moment, watching leaves drift down from trees. "She's getting really attached to you. If you're going to leave, if you're going to decide this is too hard, that your business is more important, that the novelty has worn off, you need to do it now, before she loves you more than she already does, before she's devastated instead of just disappointed." "I'm not leaving." "You say that now. I will say it every day for the rest of my life if that's what it takes for you to believe me. I'll tattoo it on my forehead. I'll skywrite it. Whatever it takes for you to understand that I'm not going anywhere. What about when you meet someone else? Someone easier? Someone who doesn't come with a complicated past and a child who isn't really yours? Someone who doesn't require you to give up million-dollar deals and face down teenage attackers? She is mine." Alfonso turned to face Delizia fully. "Maybe not biologically in the way that matters to courts and birth certificates, but she's mine in every way that matters to hearts. And as for someone else..." He stopped, gathering courage. "There is no someone else. There's only you. There's only ever been you. That's why I ran, because what I felt for you terrified me, because love meant vulnerability and I'd spent my whole life avoiding that." Delizia's armor finally cracked completely. She broke down, 5 years of strength and anger and fear pouring out in ragged sobs that shook her whole body. Alfonso pulled her to him instinctively, and for the first time she didn't push him away. She let herself be held. She cried into his shoulder while he held her, letting her release everything she'd been carrying alone. The fear, the exhaustion, the loneliness, the weight of doing it all without help. "I was so scared," she sobbed, "so alone. And you weren't there. You weren't there when I needed you most." "I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I needed you, and you chose money over us. You chose your comfort over my crisis. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." They sat like that, as her tears subsided, the sun dipping lower, casting everything in golden light. When Delicia finally pulled back, her eyes were red, but clearer than he'd seen them in months. "I'm scared to trust you," she whispered. "I'm terrified you'll leave again. That Hannah will love you and you'll break her heart like you broke mine. That I'll let myself believe and then you'll prove me wrong in the worst way possible. Then I'll spend every day proving you wrong about that fear. I'll show up so consistently you'll get sick of seeing me. I'll be so present you'll wish I'd take a day off, whatever it takes, however long it takes." Delicia's phone buzzed. Her mother with Hannah, asking if they should order dinner, if Alfonso was coming. "Come to dinner," Delicia said, the words seeming to surprise her as much as Alfonso. "At my apartment if you want." "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm asking anyway. I'm choosing to take a risk on you. Don't make me regret it." That evening, sitting at Delicia's small kitchen table, while Hannah chattered about her day and helped make a mess of the simple pasta dinner, Alfonso realized this was what he'd been chasing his whole life. Not boardrooms or mergers or Forbes profiles. This, family, home, belonging, the sound of a child's laughter, the warmth of being included, the simple perfection of being chosen, and it was terrifying and beautiful and more valuable than every dollar in his accounts. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. He thought he'd faced the worst when she made him beg. He was wrong. The worst was yet to come, and it wore his mother's face. Month 6 arrived with Alfonso having completed everything Delicia asked. 24 therapy sessions, each one peeling back another layer of defense mechanisms. 73 hours at Grace Haven, more than the required 50 because he'd found purpose in helping women rebuild their lives. Parenting course certificate framed on his office wall, a stack of 60 letters that chronicled every month he'd missed, every milestone unmarked, every "I'm sorry" that could never be enough, but had to be said anyway. Delicia had read them all one night after Hannah went to sleep, curled up on her couch with tissues and wine. Alfonso knew because she'd called him at midnight, crying too hard to speak for 5 minutes, before finally saying, "They're beautiful, they're devastating, they break my heart, but they're beautiful. You see her, you really see what you missed." He'd been at her apartment more frequently, never overnight, never crossing boundaries, but present for dinners and bedtime stories and the mundane magic of family life. Hannah had started calling him Daddy when she forgot herself, then correcting to Mr. Alfonso, looking worried she'd made a mistake. "You don't have to correct yourself," Alfonso had told her gently. "Call me whatever feels right in your heart." She'd hugged him fiercely. "I want to call you Daddy. Is that okay, Mommy?" Delicia had nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. Everything was finally, cautiously, falling into place. The foundation they were building felt solid, earned, real, until his mother showed up. Victoria Peterman arrived at Delicia's apartment on a Tuesday afternoon when Alfonso was at a therapy session. She bypassed the building's security by claiming to be a grandmother visiting her granddaughter, not technically a lie, though the sentiment was poisonous. The security guard, seeing a well-dressed older woman with kind eyes and expensive jewelry, waved her through. Delicia answered the door in work clothes, having just returned from a morning meeting, her laptop bag still on her shoulder. Hannah was at preschool. "You must be Delicia," Victoria said with a smile that didn't reach her cold eyes. "I'm Alfonso's mother. We need to talk. May I come in?" Every instinct screamed at Delicia to slam the door, but she'd been raised with southern manners by a mother who believed politeness was armor, who taught her that you could refuse someone entry while still maintaining dignity. He didn't mention you were coming. That's because he doesn't know. May I come in? This won't take long. Against her better judgment, Delicia stepped aside. Victoria entered like she was inspecting property she might purchase, dismissive gaze cataloguing everything, clearly finding it all wanting. Her expression said, "This is what my son has been wasting his time on?" "Charming place," Victoria said in a tone that meant the opposite. "Very cozy, modest, not what I'd expect for someone who's captured my son's attention so completely." "What do you want, Mrs. Peterman?" Victoria settled onto the couch without being invited, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. "I want to discuss my son's current mental state. He's been acting erratically, missing crucial business meetings, making reckless decisions, throwing away his career. All for—" She waved her hand vaguely. This situation?" Delicia's voice went dangerous. "You mean his daughter?" "A child he never wanted." Victoria pulled a checkbook from her designer purse. "Let's be practical, Ms. Moore. You have a nice life here, a respectable career, a sweet child. Why complicate it with Alfonso's midlife crisis? Get out. Hear me out." Victoria began writing with a gold pen that probably cost more than Delicia's monthly rent. $2 million, tax-free, deposited immediately. All you have to do is continue raising your daughter as you have been, without my son's involvement. He'll thank you eventually when he comes to his senses and realizes he's thrown away his entire future for a moment of sentimentality. Delicia's hands shook with rage. "I said, get out of my home. Don't be foolish. This is more money than you'll make in a decade coordinating other people's parties." "I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you except for you to leave." Hannah's bedroom door opened. She'd come home early from preschool. Delicia's mother had dropped her off while Delicia was in her meeting, letting herself in with the spare key. The little girl emerged, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her hair wild from her nap. "Mommy, I heard yelling. What's wrong?" Victoria's expression when she looked at Hannah was pure distaste. The briefest flash of disgust at Hannah's mixed race, at her sleep-rumpled appearance, at her very existence, before she masked it with false politeness. But Delicia saw it, and something murderous bloomed in her chest. "Hannah, go back to your room," Delicia said with forced calm. "But who's that lady? Why is she here?" "Nobody important. Go, now." Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. "She looks just like him. Unfortunate. She'll have a difficult time in certain circles, I'm afraid. Mixed children often do." The word hung in the air like poison. Hannah's face crumpled, her young mind not fully understanding, but sensing the cruelty. "What's unfortunate mean?" she asked in a small voice. "Did I do something bad?" "Get out!" Delicia roared. "Get out of my home now before I call the police." Victoria smiled coldly, satisfied at having drawn blood. "I thought you should know. If Alfonso pursues formal custody or tries to make this arrangement legal, I'll have him declared mentally unfit. His recent behavior supports that narrative, the sudden obsession with a child he abandoned, the destruction of his career, the irrational decisions. My lawyers are already building the case. Alfonso isn't on her birth certificate. He has no legal rights. You have no leverage." "Exactly, and I'm here to keep it that way. My family built this city, Ms. Moore. We have connections you can't imagine. Judges, politicians, media contacts. We can make your life very expensive and very difficult. We can destroy your career with a few phone calls. We can make sure no reputable company in this city will hire you." Victoria headed for the door. "Take the money, Ms. Moore. It's the smart choice, the only choice that makes sense for someone in your position. The smart choice is never seeing you again. Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from us. Our family built this city. You're nobody, a single mother who spread her legs for my son and got pregnant. Don't forget that. Don't forget your place." The door closed. Delicia locked it with shaking hands, then turned to find Hannah crying quietly. Am I unfortunate, Mommy? What did I do wrong? Why was that lady so mean? Delicia scooped her up. Nothing, baby. Nothing. You didn't do anything wrong. That lady is wrong and mean and doesn't know anything. You're perfect. You're my whole world. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. But the damage was done. Hannah cried herself to sleep, asking if she was bad, if that's why the lady was mean, if people didn't like her, if she was broken somehow. When Alfonso arrived that evening for dinner, Delicia met him at the door with red eyes and barely contained fury. "What did your mother say to you?" she asked without preamble. His face went pale. "My mother? Victoria? She's here? In the city?" "She was here, in my home, offering me money to keep you away from Hannah, calling our daughter unfortunate. To her face. Your daughter heard your mother say she was unfortunate." Alfonso looked like he might be sick. "Where is she? Is Hannah asleep?" After crying for an hour, asking what she did wrong, asking if she's broken, asking if that's why people don't like her. Delicia's voice shook. "Your mother threatened me, said she'd have you declared unfit, that she'd bury me in legal fees, that she'd destroy my career. She can't. I won't let her." "Can you stop her?" Delicia challenged. "Can you actually stop your family from destroying us?" Because she didn't sound like she was making empty threats. She sounded like someone with power and connections and zero moral compass. Alfonso pulled out his phone, dialing with shaking hands. "Mother, what did you do?" Whatever Victoria said made his jaw clench, made fury darken his face. "Stay away from them, I mean it. You come near Delicia or Hannah again, I'll—" He stopped, listening. "No, I'm not being dramatic. You called my daughter unfortunate. You threatened the woman I love. Consider yourself cut off. From me, from my life, from everything. I'll get a restraining order if I have to." He ended the call and looked at Delicia with devastated eyes. "I'm getting a restraining order. Tomorrow. First thing. She won't be able to contact you or Hannah ever again. That won't stop her from making good on her threats. Then I'll resign from the family company. I'll give up my access to the Peterman Trust. I'll start my own firm with nothing. Whatever it takes to protect you both." "You'd give up everything, your entire family, your inheritance, everything?" "I already gave up everything when I walked away from you before. Everything else is just money and names and buildings that don't mean anything. None of it matters compared to this, compared to you and Hannah." Delicia wanted to believe him, but Victoria's cold confidence lingered like a chill, like ice in her veins that wouldn't thaw. "She's right about one thing," Delicia said quietly. "You're not on the birth certificate. You have no legal rights to Hannah. If I wanted to, I could disappear tomorrow and you'd never see her again. I could move, change my name. You'd have no recourse." "I know. So why should I trust that you won't do the same when your family makes your life hell? When they threaten your company, your fortune, everything you've built? When staying with us costs you everything?" "Because none of that is what I've built." Alfonso stepped closer. "What I've built is 60 letters, 24 therapy sessions where I confronted every demon. A relationship with my daughter, trust with you, or the beginning of it. That's what I've built. And it's worth more than every dollar my family has. It's worth more than anything." Hannah appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy? Why is everyone sad? Did I do something wrong?" The word, "Daddy," said without correction or hesitation, broke something open in the tension. "Come here, Hannah Bear," Alfonso said, kneeling down. She ran to him, and he held her close. "That lady who came today, she was wrong. You're not unfortunate. You're the most fortunate thing that ever happened to me. You're perfect. And I'm sorry she was mean. I'm sorry she said cruel things, but she was wrong about everything. Are you going away because of her? Is she going to make you leave?" "No, baby, I'm never going away." "Promise? Really, really promise?" Alfonso looked at Delicia over Hannah's head, his eyes asking permission for the vow he was about to make. Delicia found herself nodding, choosing to believe despite her fear. "I promise," Alfonso said firmly. "No matter what anyone says or does, I'm staying right here. Nobody can make me leave you. Not my mother, Not anyone. You're stuck with me forever. After Hannah went back to bed, reassured but not entirely convinced, Delicia and Alfonso sat in heavy silence. "I need time to think," Delicia finally said. "Your mother just declared war on us. I need to know if you're really willing to lose everything. Because if you're not, we end this now before Hannah's hurt more. Before I believe and get destroyed again. How do I prove it? Tell me what you need and I'll do it. I don't know if you can. I don't know if anything you do will be enough to convince me you won't choose your family over us when it comes down to it." It was the most uncertain moment in their entire journey. Everything they'd built felt suddenly fragile, breakable, threatened by forces Alfonso couldn't control. And Delicia looked at him like she was already preparing for goodbye. Chapter 9. The moment before. Trust isn't rebuilt in grand gestures. It's rebuilt in the quiet moments when you choose to stay even when leaving would be easier. Alfonso kept his word. Within days he'd filed for a restraining order against his mother, cutting her off from any contact with Delicia or Hannah. He formally resigned from Peterman Real Estate Holdings, walking away from the company his grandfather had built, the empire he'd been groomed since birth to inherit. His letter of resignation was 2 sentences. "I resign effective immediately. My family is more important." Victoria retaliated by freezing his trust fund access, calling in favors with business associates, spreading rumors about his mental state. Alfonso didn't care. He started his own small firm focused on ethical development, affordable housing, community-centered projects, operating out of a modest office with 3 employees instead of 50. But he didn't tell Delicia any of this directly. Instead, he texted daily updates. Not pleas for forgiveness, just proof he was still showing up, still consistent even without an audience. "Filed the paperwork today. Should be official soon. She won't be able to come near you. First day at the new office. It's small but it's mine, built on my own terms." Therapy was brutal. Dr. O says trauma work is like that. Necessary but painful. Worth it. Finished letter 73. I know I only owed 60. Can't seem to stop writing to her. Can't seem to stop telling her about all the moments I'm missing. Photos accompanied some messages. Him at the shelter volunteering beyond his required hours. Him at a parenting support group he'd joined on his own. Him boxing up belongings from his penthouse to move to a smaller apartment closer to their neighborhood. Evidence of choices made without fanfare or expectation of praise. He never asked to see them, never pressured, never demanded answers to his questions about whether Delicia had decided anything. Just proved he was still consistent even without an audience, even in the silence. Delicia's mother, Gloria, was the one who finally broached the subject over Sunday dinner at her house, fried chicken and collard greens on the table, like every week since Delicia was a child. "That man walked through fire for you," Gloria said, watching Hannah play in the backyard through the kitchen window. "Question is, are you ready to forgive? What if he leaves again?" Delicia's voice was small, vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself to be, even with her mother. "Then he leaves, and you'll survive. You already proved that. You rebuilt yourself once. You can do it again if you have to." Gloria took her daughter's hand. "But baby, you can't live in fear forever. Sometimes you gotta choose faith over fear, not blind faith. You've tested that man every way possible, put him through trials Job would have failed. But at some point, you gotta decide if his actions match his words. What if I'm making a mistake? What if you're not? What if you're so busy protecting yourself from being hurt again that you miss out on something real?" Hannah ran inside, grass-stained and happy. A butterfly had landed on her hand. "Grandma, can I call Daddy and tell him? Can I tell him about the butterfly?" It had become routine, Hannah calling Alfonso daily to share small moments. He answered every time, no matter what he was doing, dropping everything to hear about butterflies or drawings or what she had for lunch. "Sure, baby," Delicia said, her heart aching with the weight of the decision before her. She listened to Hannah's excited chatter on the phone, heard Alfonso's patient responses, his genuine interest in every detail of her day, his questions that showed he'd been listening, that he remembered what she'd told him yesterday and the day before. This was the man who'd thrown money at her to disappear. This was also the man who'd stood in rain for 2 hours, who'd taken beatings to protect their daughter, who'd given up everything for a chance at being a father. People could change. She had to believe that, or nothing meant anything. Hannah's preschool graduation arrived on a perfect spring morning, the kind of day that felt designed for celebrations and new beginnings. Delicia hadn't invited Alfonso. The 2 weeks of silence still hung between them, heavy and uncertain, but she also hadn't told him not to come. She spotted him immediately. He sat in the very back row of the small auditorium, apart from the other families, respecting the boundaries she'd set. He'd respected her need for space, but still shown up just in case she'd changed her mind. Their eyes met across the room. Alfonso lifted his hand in a small wave, tentative and hopeful. Delicia managed a nod, her heart racing. Hannah was vibrating with excitement in the staging area, her yellow graduation gown too big, her cap sliding sideways. The ceremony began with songs, then moved to the processional where each child would receive their diploma and say what they wanted to be when they grew up. Halfway through the alphabet, it was Hannah's turn. She walked onto the small stage with careful steps, spotted Alfonso in the back, and her face lit up like sunrise. The principal handed her the rolled paper tied with ribbon. "Hannah Moore, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Hannah looked directly at Alfonso, her voice clear and certain. "I want to be like my daddy. He's brave and kind, and he never gives up even when things are hard, even when people are mean to him, even when it hurts." The room went silent. Every parent was now staring at either Hannah, Alfonso, or Delicia, trying to piece together the story. Then Hannah ran, off the stage, down the aisle, her too big gown flying behind her, straight to Alfonso. "You came!" she shrieked, launching herself into his arms. "I knew you'd come! I told Mommy you'd come!" Alfonso caught her, tears streaming down his face, not caring who saw. "I'll always come, sweetheart. Always. No matter what. I'll always be there." "Are you my daddy?" Hannah asked, loudly enough for the entire auditorium to hear, her voice carrying in the stunned silence. "Like, really, really my daddy, for real this time?" Alfonso looked at Delicia. She was standing now, tears on her own cheeks, every eye in the room on her, every phone recording, every parent waiting for her answer. This was the moment, the choice, the decision that would shape everything. She could say no, protect herself one more time, keep the armor intact, maintain the walls that had kept her safe, or she could choose faith over fear, choose possibility over protection, choose to believe that people can change, that love can be earned, that second chances can be real. Delicia walked down the aisle to them, aware of every watching eye, every recording phone, every parent who would gossip about this later. Knelt beside Hannah, beside Alfonso. "Yes, baby, he's really, really your daddy." Hannah screamed with pure joy, the sound echoing off the gymnasium walls. "I have a daddy! Did everyone hear? I have a daddy, a real one!" The room erupted in confused applause, some parents standing, some crying, the ones who knew Delicia's story, who'd watched her raise Hannah alone, who'd seen her struggle and triumph. Alfonso looked at Delicia with such naked hope and love that it hurt to witness, that it felt like being burned and healed at the same time. "Can we talk?" Delicia asked quietly beneath the noise. "Tonight, after she's asleep." "I'll be there." Hannah inserted herself between them, grabbing both their hands. "Does this mean Daddy lives with us now? Can he read me bedtime stories every night? Can we be a real family?" Both adults laughed wetly, overwhelmed by emotion. "We'll see, baby. We'll talk about it." But Delicia's hand found Alfonso's, the first intentional touch she'd initiated in weeks, not pulling away, choosing to reach for him, choosing to hold on. That night, After the celebration dinner with Gloria, after Hannah's bath and bedtime story, after their daughter finally succumbed to excited exhaustion still wearing her graduation cap, Delicia and Alfonso sat on her small couch. She brought out the box. The torn check, kept all these years, both pieces preserved like evidence. "I kept this to remind myself I didn't need you," Delicia said, holding the pieces like they still had power. "That I survived alone. That I was strong enough without you. That I didn't need anyone. You are. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I know I am. That's not the question anymore." She carried the box to her small fireplace, lit kindling with shaking hands. "The question is, are you strong enough for the boring parts, the hard parts, the parts where there's no audience, where nobody's watching, where it's just showing up day after day when it's not exciting anymore?" She dropped both pieces into the fire, watched them burn, watched 5 years of armor and anger turn to ash. "I'm strong enough," Alfonso said, his voice steady. "I'm strong enough to show up every single day, even when you don't want me there. Strong enough to love her even when she's a teenager who hates me. Strong enough to love you even when you're protecting yourself by pushing me away. Strong enough to be the man you both deserve. And if I'm not ready, if I need more time, if I wake up scared and push you away, then I'll wait, however long it takes. I'll be patient when you're scared. I'll be steady when you're uncertain. I'll prove it through consistency, not promises." Delicia looked at this man who'd destroyed her and was now rebuilding them both. "I forgive you." Alfonso's breath caught. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because you earned it, though you did. Not because of the conditions, though you exceeded everyone. I forgive you because I'm tired of carrying anger, because it's heavy and I want to put it down, because Hannah deserves a present father, and because—" her voice broke. "Because I never stopped loving you, even when I hated you, even when I wanted to, even when I tried. I couldn't. I don't deserve that. Probably not. But I'm giving it anyway. That's what forgiveness is, giving something that isn't earned." She moved closer. "But Alfonso, you break her heart. There's no third chance. You don't get to disappoint her. You don't get to make her feel like she's not enough. Ever." "I understand. And I need you to keep going to therapy. This isn't fixed and forgotten. Healing isn't linear. I won't stop. And I need patience when I'm scared, when I test you, when I push you away because I'm terrified you'll leave, when I wake up panicking that this isn't real. I'll be there every time. I'll prove it every time." They kissed then, tentative, tearful, sacred, not passionate but earned. 5 years of pain and anger and forgiveness compressed into one moment of choosing each other again, of choosing to believe, of choosing possibility over protection. Hannah, padding out in her pajamas, broke them apart. "Are you kissing? Does this mean you're married? Can I be a flower girl?" "Not yet, baby," Delicia said, laughing through tears. "But soon?" Alfonso and Delicia looked at each other, smiled through tears. "Maybe soon." Hannah climbed between them, content and secure. "I like our family. This is the best family ever." "Me too, Hannah Bear. Me too." Chapter 10. The Rebuilding. Forgiveness isn't a moment of weakness. It's the bravest thing she'd ever done. Seasons changed. Alfonso moved boxes into their apartment on a crisp autumn morning, leaves crunching underfoot, the air promising winter. Hannah helped by getting in everyone's way and offering unnecessary direction with the authority of a foreman. "That box goes in my room, Daddy. No, not there, next to my dollhouse." Alfonso, sweating despite the cool weather, exchanged amused glances with Delicia. "Yes, ma'am." Gloria arrived with lunch and unsolicited advice, as mothers do. Tanya brought a housewarming plant and suspiciously misty eyes, claiming allergies, though it was October. The apartment that had held just Delicia and Hannah now expanded to hold all three of them, not a mansion, not a penthouse. Home. That evening, Alfonso attempted to cook dinner. Emphasis on attempted. The smoke alarm went off twice. "Daddy, this pasta tastes funny," Hannah announced with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Like, burnt?" "I know, baby. That's why Mommy's going to fix it." Alfonso stepped aside, admitting defeat. Delicia took over with fond exasperation, their movements around the small kitchen still learning each other's patterns but trying. He handed her ingredients before she asked. She guided his hand when he chopped vegetables too large. They were building a rhythm. Gloria said, "Grace, thank you for second chances, for growth, for this family that fought its way back to wholeness, for the courage to forgive and the strength to change, for teaching us that love isn't perfection, it's persistence. Amen." "Amen," they echoed. After dinner, while Delicia cleaned up, Alfonso retreated to the small desk he'd set up in their bedroom corner. On the wall above it hung all 60 original letters to Hannah, framed in simple black frames, plus 17 more. He'd never stopped writing them. Delicia found him working on number 78, his handwriting filling the page. "You don't have to keep doing these." Alfonso looked up. "I want her to have them, when she's older, so she knows how hard I fought to be her father. So she knows I never stopped choosing her. So she has proof. She knows that now. She sees it every day. But I want her to always know. Even on hard days when I mess up, and I will, she'll have proof that I never gave up, that every single day I chose her. I chose you both." Delicia read over his shoulder. "Month 78. You asked today if we could get a dog. Your mother said maybe. I said yes immediately, then got in trouble for undermining her parenting. I'm still learning that parenting means being a team, not just saying yes to everything to make you happy, but watching you with animals, your gentle kindness, the way you talk to butterflies. Hannah, you're going to make this world better. And I'm so grateful I get to watch you do it." "We're not getting a dog," Delicia said. "I know, but I can dream, and maybe eventually." Bedtime found Alfonso reading to Hannah from her favorite book. "Guess How Much I Love You," about a rabbit trying to explain the vastness of his love. "Daddy, do you love me to the moon?" Hannah asked sleepily, her eyes already drifting closed. "To the moon and back, and around the sun, and through every star in the sky, and to the edge of the universe and back again. That's a lot. Not enough. Never enough. I could love you for 1,000 years and it wouldn't be enough." Hannah yawned. "You're not leaving tomorrow, right?" "No, baby. Or the next day. Or the next day. Or ever. Or ever." Hannah smiled, already drifting. "Good. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Hannah Bear, more than all the stars." From the doorway, Delicia watched them. Some mornings she still woke up checking to make sure Alfonso was really there, that this wasn't a dream, that he hadn't disappeared in the night. But he always was, solid, present, consistent, snoring softly beside her, making coffee in the morning, tripping over Hannah's toys, being real and imperfect and there. After Hannah slept, Alfonso found Delicia in their room, staring out the window at the city lights. "She asked me today about brothers or sisters." "Of course she did. She asks about everything." Delicia smiled. "What did you say?" "That it's something we'd decide together. Someday, if you want. No pressure." "Maybe." She moved into his arms, fitting against him like she'd always belonged there. "If you keep proving you're not going anywhere." "I'm not going anywhere." "I know." And the wonder was, she finally believed him. The fear still came sometimes, but the belief was stronger. They stood at Hannah's doorway together, watching their daughter sleep, her graduation cap still on her nightstand like a trophy. The blank check was ash now, scattered in a fireplace that no longer burned. The 5 years lost couldn't be returned, couldn't be relived, but something new was being built on the foundation of consistency, forgiveness, and earned trust. Alfonso had learned that love isn't blank checks or grand gestures, it's showing up. Every morning, every night, every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every "I love you" whispered in the dark. Every choice to stay when leaving would be easier, every moment of choosing them over everything else. And Delicia had learned that strength isn't never needing anyone. It's choosing who deserves to stand beside you when you're at your strongest and your weakest. It's the courage to forgive when forgiveness isn't owed. It's the faith to trust when trust has been shattered and rebuilt piece by painful piece. They'd both learned that second chances aren't given, they're built. One day, one choice, one moment of showing up at a time. As they turned off Hannah's nightlight and closed her door softly, Alfonso took Delicia's hand. In his small desk corner, letter 79 waited to be written. In the morning, Hannah would wake up and find her father still there, as promised. And the morning after that, and every morning forward, because this was the empire that mattered. This was the only foundation worth building. This was home, not perfect, not without scars, but real and whole, and theirs. And that was worth more than all the blank checks in the world.